Hi guys, welcome to the Art Business Podcast. On today's episode, I want to talk about the power of your dream. Hello, I am back in the studio today. This is Melanie here at Vision City Design Studio. The last time I joined you, I was literally in my car, covered in sweat from a yoga class, but today I am back in my studio, very excited because it's just such a nice thing to be back in not only in audio form, but also in video. So hello YouTube. Hello, I've missed you, but I am back today. Really excited. So today I want to talk to you about the power of your dream. Now, some of you might be going, yeah, what are you talking about when you say that? What I mean is the power of your dream to take the art that you make and to get it online to be something that can be sold to people all over the world. Now, having said that, what I'm talking about today is so kind of open-ended that technically somebody could be listening to this podcast or watching this on YouTube who maybe is not a visual artist like myself or like us, those who are regularly listening or watching this podcast. However, this is something that could be applicable to really anybody with a dream. So if that's you, stick around. Don't worry, you don't have to kind of check out because maybe you think, well, I'm not an artist, this doesn't apply to me. This absolutely can. So I want to encourage you to hang out with all of us artists as well. You're absolutely welcome here. So I want to talk about the dream and the power of a dream because I feel like so many of you are constantly messaging me, almost looking for that validation to even continue on towards your dream. And so that's what this video or audio podcast is really going to be for you today, I hope. And that is just some validation, some encouragement, and some even strategy that can actually help you to not cut that dream short, but to move it forward. Okay, so that's what really this whole specific episode is all about. And I hope it's an encouragement to you. So before I go into too much strategy and all that kind of tech stuff, what I want to talk to you about is maybe sharing a little bit of my own journey. Because a lot of you, maybe you've heard little like tidbits of it as I've been talking over these podcasts, but a lot of you may or may not know my story. So I thought, let me just share that really quick because that might bring some context into why I'm so passionate now about helping others, because it was not easy for me to get what I'm doing now, my art business and my art studio going. There's a lot of challenges, especially at the beginning. And frankly, there's still challenges, okay? But as you grow, even you get new challenges, right? And so in every stage of this thing, there's new kind of successes and new challenges. But I remember when I was really at the beginning of my journey, I was a graphic designer and illustrator. I was running my own design studio just from my home. So I'm actually currently in my new home, but this is in a home several apartments ago, where I was offering design service for the music industry. In fact, I was kind of everything to everyone. And I talk about this in my niche courses where I was literally, whatever you needed, I was that person. So if you needed a wedding photographer, I was that. If you needed a logo designer, I was that. Or if you needed a, album cover for your band or a t-shirt design, I was that. So I definitely was a chameleon. And at the time I felt, oh, that's a strength because I can kind of be anything to everyone. However, what happened was it began to really wear me down. And simultaneously, I was traveling all over the world with my husband. He's a rock and roll musician named Manifest, spelled Manafest. So you want to check him out on YouTube, you can do that. He's still doing music. He's still putting out a ton of music, doing really well. So check him out. But basically, I was doing all this traveling. I was kind of doing all kinds of stuff and simultaneously was working as a model. And this is during my 20s. So I was literally kind of run ragged. I was flying all over the place. I was doing design work on planes and trains and tour buses. And then I would come back home to Toronto, my hometown, and I would work doing modeling jobs. And I'd be shooting all day. Sometimes I'd be on several sets a day. I'd be doing shows when the show season came around. So I was kind of doing a lot of things, but I felt, and maybe some of you might relate to this, where I felt as though I was doing a lot of things, but that inner person of the person that really, I felt like I really had more to give as an artist and as a creative individual. I feel like that wasn't getting fed, if that makes sense. So some of you may relate to that, where you're doing a lot of activity, maybe you're doing a lot of service design, but it might feel a little bit soul-sucking where you're just kind of doing what everyone else is expecting or asking, but you're not really fully feeling like you're really tapping into the real artist inside of you. And that's kind of where I was at. And I was kind of, I was at this kind of crossroads of sorts. And my husband and I, we took a walk one night. I call this the walk that changed everything. And for those of you who have watched my webinar, you would know a little bit of this story. And by the way, if you haven't checked out my webinar, I don't know what you're waiting for, okay? I'm just giving you a shameless plug right now. Check out my webinar where I talk about really how to do what I'm talking about, which is selling your art online. So you can check that out at visioncity.biz/Sell Your Art Webinar. And I'm going to be kind of elaborating on more of what I'm talking about now. But I call this the walk that changed everything because my husband and I, we went for a walk. It was freezing cold here in Pickering, Ontario, and it was a snowstorm. So it was straight up like nobody was outside. It was that bad, okay? There was like feet of snow. And my husband and I were like, let's go for a walk, because that's what you do in the middle of a snowstorm, right? And so, hope you can hear the sarcasm in my voice. But we literally went for this walk, and I remember chomping through snow, and suddenly it was such a quiet night because nobody was outside. So it was just a wonderful opportunity to just kind of vent, you know? I don't know if you guys ever do that with your spouses, but I just straight up vented, and I wanted to just scream because I was so frustrated. And I felt like I was doing all the activities, but I wasn't really fulfilling a passion. I was almost 30, and there's something about turning 30, guys. I know if you guys aren't 30 yet, then you may not know yet how that feels. There's something about turning that next something with a zero, like 30 or 40 or whatever. And I'm not 40 yet, but I'm getting close, so I'm kind of like, oh, okay, maybe that's that feeling again. But it was literally one of those moments where I needed to know what I stood for. I needed to know what I was doing. I was doing a lot of activity. I was busy. I was earning money. And I wanted to really fulfill something that was deeper, okay? So some of you are listening and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe you're doing service design. Maybe you're working a day job. It has nothing to do with art, but deep down, you know that that's your thing. Or maybe you're not an artist at all. Maybe you are somebody who you really have a desire to do something completely different than your day job. And it's a real, true dream to do that. And maybe it's not even work related. Maybe it's just something that you have a dream to do. Maybe it's a personal dream or a goal or a fitness goal or whatever it might be. But I remember feeling like something's got to change. I got to change something because I'm at that point where I'm getting really frustrated internally. And I don't even feel like my heart's in it anymore. Like my heart's not really in certain things that I was working on. And so I remember I was talking to my husband and he kind of was like, well, what do you really, really want to do? What's your real thing? And I said, you know what? I really want my art to have messages. I want my art to really be messages to people. I want it to inspire people. I want them to kind of feel it. And I want it to be something that really resonates with people and really inspires them. And he goes, well, it sounds to me like you need to become your own client. And I thought, that's strange. What do you mean? And he goes, well, why don't you just make your own like art and sell it? And I thought, I literally hit him. Like, have you ever watched Elaine on Seinfeld? It was one of those moments. I hit him, pushed him, like an Elaine push. And I was like, what? That is brilliant. I'm like, well, what do you mean though? Like, explain. He's like, well, yeah, be your own client. Design your own things, create your own messages, and put them out there. And just put them out there, you know? And I remember thinking, like, that's an insane idea that might actually really work. And I remembered a studio that I really look up to called Invisible Creature. And they are incredible designers. I encourage you to look them up if you are so inclined. They're brilliant. They're actually two guys, they're brothers I really look up to. So it's Don and Ryan Clark at Invisible Creature. And one of the things that they always did was they always did incredible design work, but they also had their own merchandise, meaning they would sell their posters or they would sell these figurines or these different things that they were creating that kind of went along with their brand. And suddenly I just saw it. It's like I saw the idea of not just being a service business, but being a product business too. And that's when the wheels began to turn. And suddenly I was like, oh, I could actually do this. I could actually make products. Kind of like in a way like how in music we sell merchandise. Like, sure, you're selling music, but you also sell t-shirts and skateboards and sweatshirts and all that stuff because when somebody's a fan of a musician, they want to wear their name, right? And so it was kind of like that kind of a revelation. So that's really where the wheels began to turn for me. And I remember a few months later, we made a huge decision to move to California. And that was really where I felt like I needed to implement this idea. I was at a ladies' conference at an amazing church called Newport Church in Newport Beach. Well, actually, it was a little bit outside of Newport Beach, but anyway. And Christine Kane was on the stage, okay? And anyone know anything about Christine Kane? She runs the A21 campaign, which is totally like working very diligently to legally kind of bring down those that are really pushing forward the whole like sex trafficking thing. And they're literally rescuing girls from sex trafficking and any kind of trafficking, really. And she's like a hero of mine. She's a powerhouse woman. And she was on stage speaking at this really inspirational conference, and it was called the Imagine Conference. And it was my first time there, and we had just moved to California. And I was sitting there, and every single thing she said, I felt like it was directly firing right at me. I don't know if you've ever been in a conference or a teaching setting where that happens, but I literally felt like everything she was saying was just right at me. And she was talking about the power of your life and how your life can really affect people, and it can bring people up, and it can inspire people, and it can even save people's lives, literally, in her case. And I thought, oh man. And it was like all of a sudden I had this overwhelming sense that this idea, this dream that I had was important, and I needed to not only do it, but I needed to do it right now. Like literally go home that night and start working on it. So I did. I went home. I told my husband, I'm doing this thing. He was totally supportive, which was awesome. We started to even spend money towards my dream, which was scary because at the time it was a little bit of a scary, we just moved to a different country. We didn't have like all this extra money. And I was kind of like, are we nuts? And my husband, Chris, was like, no, you're doing this. I could totally see that this is in your heart. You need to do this. And that's when it all started. I gave myself 3 weeks and I created 12 prints. And they were screen printed at the time, and I did a photo shoot for them. Like we had them printed out, and I had a friend of mine come out with me one day, and we did photos. We did a launch party. I mean, I wrote a blogs about it. I wrote on social media. Certain levels of social media were just getting started, so it was more like Facebook at the time, and I think just my blog at the time. But I made it public, so there was totally opportunity for me to fail publicly. But I was so all in, okay? And so I remember when I was doing that, feeling so like conflicted. I was like, I'm either a genius or I'm an absolute nut bar, because this is actually going to be either a great idea or a terrible idea. And so you feel silly is my point. When you start a dream, start working towards a dream, you're going to feel kind of silly doing the things that you have to do. But when you do those things and you put your whole heart into them, you'll be really amazed at the things that start to happen. And I remember a friend of ours that we'd only met a few times. He's a new friend. He found out what I was doing, and he had a friend at fab.com. Now, fab.com, for those of you who don't know, at the time, I don't think they are this anymore, but at the time, they were doing flash sales. They featured really unique brands that would do like, modern design pieces and things. And they would do flash sales where they would give somebody an opportunity to sell their products. They'd give them 3 days featured on their website, and you'd have the opportunity to sell a ton of stuff at 40% discount. So he contacted his friend who was working at Fab, and then the Fab guy contacted me and said, hey, we love your stuff. We want to do a sale with you. I was like, what's fab.com? I was so ignorant. I knew nothing. But literally, I started to do these sales with them, and I would sell thousands of dollars in 3 days, okay? And I would do another one, and I'd sell again, and I would sell again, and I would sell again. And suddenly I went from nothing, okay, and struggling to even pay for the prints to suddenly selling a ton of products, not only in America, but also in the UK and in Germany. So what is my point in telling you this story? Is this me saying, like, let's pat me on the back? Not at all. In fact, that's not at all what this is about. Because then after that, there was times of lulls, right? So I had to figure out how to actually build my business. That's the honest truth. But what is my point in sharing this with you? My point is, you don't know what's on the other side of you stepping out in your dream. And that's why I'm so passionate to say, guys, don't give up on your dream, okay? Now, maybe it's an art dream, maybe it's a fitness dream, maybe it's a certain type of job or a certain lifestyle, or maybe it's to buy your first home, okay? Maybe it's to move to a certain city or have a kid, I mean, there's so many dreams that are just deep in our hearts. And so that's really what I've really felt to talk about today on this podcast. Now, is this a little bit off the beaten path? It is, but I feel like it really might help and inspire those of you who are just at the beginning, or maybe you're midway. In fact, midway is even scarier, because I've heard it said before that when you open the first door of a dream, it's all exciting, right? It's all new, and everything is daisies and butterflies and rainbows because it's fuzzy and it's beautiful. But then you get into this hallway where you're trying to get down the hallway towards this goal, but the hallway is often empty and quiet, and you're like, wait, now what? What do I do now? And so that is actually why I do webinars. That is why I do courses. That is why I offer information, because man, I would have begged for the information when I was starting out, when I was in those hallways of, wait, I've stepped out, I've spent the money, I've put together the website on Etsy. Now what do I do? How do I keep this thing going? How do I push this thing forward, right? And so I want to encourage you that your dream is valuable. Your dream is worth it. But I want to encourage you to work your dream, okay? So some of the ways that you can start to implement that, I want to give you a little bit of strategy while I'm with you. So number one, write down your dream. Write it down really clearly in one sentence. Don't write a list. Write down one thing that is your dream. I encourage you to do that. And then put it somewhere really visible. So maybe it's in your office, maybe it's on your mirror where you do your makeup every morning. Maybe it's on your fridge. I'm a huge fan of putting quotes and things on my fridge. And I don't care how tacky it looks. I love a good quote on fridge. So I absolutely love that. Because keeping things and thoughts and ideas in front of your eyes and your ears is so, so, so important. Even the Bible says that. Keep your thoughts and your eyes and your ears from evil. In other words, keep good things coming into your eyes, okay? So if it's a good thought, it's a good encouraging dream, something that you really have in your heart, okay? Number two, I would encourage you to write down a couple of things that you can do to work towards that dream. So maybe it's even 3 things. Just write 3 things and give yourself a time frame to do those things. So maybe it's over the next 2 months, I want to make certain phone calls, or I want to do research, or I want to maybe make my first 3 art prints, or whatever it might be. But write down 3 really solid things that when you get those things done, they will motivate you forward again. And my husband is a huge fan of action. He is he's a skateboarder, surfer. He never stops in general. But in general, his whole kind of quote is, action fuels success. So I believe that too. When you take action, even if it's a little bit of action, it will fuel you to your next thing. It will fuel you on to step 2 and 3 and 4, okay? So taking your first step, even if it's a baby step, okay, that will fuel you. Maybe it's just gathering all your art together and saying which one or which style is really the one I want to run with. Like, I'm a real believer in focusing on one niche style. That's a whole nother topic, which I talk about on this YouTube channel. I talk about it on my podcast. I talk about it in courses. I have courses about your niche style. So it's definitely a big, big, big thing. But maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's deciding what you want to run with. And even if you do other things for personal reasons, your artwork or whatever it might be, maybe run with this one style and make that your brand, okay? So write down a few things to really get you going towards your dream. And then when you hit those things, I encourage you to celebrate them. So maybe you just do something fun for yourself and you celebrate. Maybe you go get a manicure, or whatever it might be. Maybe it's not even something that's spending money. Maybe it's just going to a beautiful, nature walk with your family. Just do something to say, I did it. I did it, like high five myself kind of thing. Okay, I'm a big believer in that. And let yourself know it's great. You did something great, okay? I think that we're so hard on ourselves often. I definitely fall into this category where I can be so hard on myself, but it's amazing when you just look back and you say, you know what, I did some good stuff this month, okay? I did some really good things this week, and acknowledge them, okay? So I hope that that encourages you. And again, check out my webinar. If you're somebody who is an artist that's watching this or listening to this, check out my webinar. It will fuel you even more. It will give you encouragement. It will give you some strategies. And I will share more of my story. I will share some more kind of ways that you can get things going. And you can check that out at visioncity.biz/Sell Your Art webinar. And while we're on the topic of dream, I want to share with you my dream print. Now, actually, last podcast, I actually launched a print through the podcast, and you guys loved that. And I offered you an amazing coupon code where you can get 25% off in my shop. So I'm going to do that this week as well, because you guys really were into that. It was something that you guys enjoy, got good feedback on. So today I'm going to talk about my dream print. Now here it is. Now those of you who are listening over podcast, you can't see this, but I'm holding up my dream print. So this is actually one of my first prints that I created in the process I was telling you about. And this is something that's really inspired a lot of people. I've had people that are like accountants, or people that are teachers, or people that are not necessarily in, say, an artistic field. I've had a lot of them tell me, I have this in my office, or I keep this in my kitchen, or I put this up in my daughter's room so it reminds her to dream. You know, this print has really been an inspirational one around here, so I want to be sure to offer this to you guys today. I'm going to give this to you as a coupon code using the coupon code podcast. If you go to my website at visioncityart.com, you can get your own copy of this specific print, the dream print. It's in a section called Happy Prints. Now, if you're listening over podcast, then I want to encourage you to just go to the podcast notes, where I have put a link there for you to just click on it so you don't have to look around and try and search for it. But this specific dream print is of a city that's floating on a cloud. And I remember designing this print and thinking, what is it about this image that really speaks to me? Because I kind of just drew it on paper. And I feel like it's because a lot of times our dreams, they feel kind of far away, so they're a bit fuzzy. And they're kind of whimsical, right? We don't really have rules on our dreams. And so that's why this is a city floating on a cloud. This inspires me. I actually have this hanging in my own office. You can see it right here. Oops, oh, right there. You can see it right there behind me. I have it in a small 8x10 there. And I really love that print for me. And so it's funny how a lot of times I'm designing things for myself, but then people that are following me, they also enjoy them as well. So I want to encourage you, get a dream print. Go ahead and order it. We will ship it to you. You can actually choose your size as well on the website. So guys, I hope that this has inspired you guys. And again, check out my webinar and my dream print at visioncityart.com. Use the code podcast at checkout and you'll save 25%. Guys, thank you so much. And I want to encourage you, do not ever, ever, ever give up on your dream, because your dream is valuable and it is absolutely worth it.